Looking a bit like a troupe of extras from The Lord of the Rings, we left the village and set off on the 10-kilometer walk to the bee cliff. In stark contrast to all the modern climbing gear we'd carried up the glacier, the honey hunters were clearly intending to keep things simple. After 3 hours' walk, I got my first glimpse of the cliff. It looked terrifying, a sheer face of unforgiving rock, 150 meters high, overhanging, and then there were the bees.
All the black plates, those are the bee combs.
Those sort of black masses.
Yeah.
What I dismissed as large brown fungi were in fact huge swarms of bees, each containing up to 20,000 individuals clustered around a comb. And then suddenly, they started to move. Hitman explained that this extraordinary Mexican wave is a defensive tactic to scare off predators. When a bird or a hornet gets too close, the bees, which hang 6 deep around the honeycomb, collectively raise their abdomens to give the appearance of being one large organism.
And the idea is we go up there and get them.
Yeah, we will have to put the ladder from the top, and then we have to come down all the way.
It's madness. It's madness, Hitman.
Suddenly I realized just how lunatic this whole mission was. Not only was I going to have to climb down a bamboo rope ladder, hanging over the edge of a sheer cliff face just to get to the bees, but I risked being stung to death by the angry swarms when I got there and tried to take their honey. None of this seemed to bother my fellow honey hunters, though, who were enthusiastically planning their assault on the cliff. But first there was the small matter of a few rather essential repairs. Each ladder is almost 50 meters long, handmade from lengths of woven bamboo. During the rest of the year, they are stored in the smoke above Min Badur's hearth to stop them from rotting or being eaten by insects. But they do become brittle, and this year the older of the two needed rather a lot of attention.
So there's more than one ladder?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get down the other one.
Yeah, that's the new one.
Yeah.
That evening, we camped at the bottom of the cliff and ate a traditional honey hunter's meal of nettle stew and baked millet flour.
This is, we call dido, which is a sort of porridge. This is very, very good for your health and good for your muscles and body, and, you know,
just what you need before
yeah.
a day of honey hunting.
Yeah. How are you feeling about tomorrow?
How am I feeling? Nervous.
Nervous?
Yeah.
Why?
What do you mean, why? Because it's a very sheer cliff. There are thousands of honeybees, and I don't like heights.
You don't like heights?
No.
Oh.
After another restless night's sleep, I awoke to bad news. Apparently the cliff was called Darlam, or darkness, out of respect for those honey hunters who had already died here.
Many years ago, these two father and son, they came to here to steal the honey. And they fell down here, both of them, and they died here.
If I've learned anything on my travels, it's that when offerings are made to the gods, it means that the humans are pushing their boundaries. And with the Gurung, it was no exception. There was nothing else for it. The day had been deemed auspicious, the spirits were satisfied, and the omens were good. The honey hunt began. First, smoky fires were lit at the foot of the cliff to simulate the effect of a forest fire and trick the bees into abandoning their nests. And sure enough, as Hitman and I made our way up to the bottom of the rock face, bees began to fill the air, exposing the huge yellow nests beneath.
They throw it down to here.
In fear of being stung, I taped up all the gaps in my shirt. But as new boys, we had to wait at the bottom, while Min Badur and the team hauled the ladders up above our heads and tied them to trees at the top, apparently completely unconcerned about standing on the edge of a 150-meter drop. It seemed to me that despite the smoke, there was still a terrifying amount of bees around the nests. But, unperturbed, Min Badur set off down the ladder.
So he has to have both arms and legs free
Yeah.
for working.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hardly watch.
Yeah. Look at the bare feet.
He was being followed by his assistant, known as Big Min. But before they could start the harvest, they called for a bit more smoke.
Okay, you bees,
Yeah, that's it.
have some smoke.
The direct action smoke reveals the brood comb or bee nursery, where all the baby bees lie incubating in their own hexagonal cells.
Look, I mean, they're completely surrounded in a cloud of bees. They
Yeah.
must be being stung, those guys.
Yes, of course. When you are, breaking their nest
Yeah,
or
I
their
mean,
house and
busting up his house.
Holes are then made in this structure so that ropes with toggles on the end can be threaded through.
I still can't quite believe I'm looking at this.
Look, now they're just going to chop the brood section.
Oh, yes.
With thousands of bees still clustered around the top of the hive where the honey is stored, Big Min and Little Min work together to cut away the brood comb, using a kukuri knife lashed to the end of a long pole. Although this section contains no honey, the wax is valuable, and the larvae, rich in protein, are considered a delicacy by the gurung, so the whole thing is carefully lowered to the ground. The honeycomb itself is then scraped into a basket lined with goatskin, and it too is lowered to the guys at the bottom.
Don't watch it up.
There we are. Straight into my hands. Wow. That's the honey.
Yeah.
Yummy, yum. A lot of bees.
Bees and honey. It's quite heavy. Almost.
Can't believe you're doing that with your bare hands. Has anyone tried it yet?
Not yet, because they have to pray for the cliff and for the
Before you're allowed to taste it.
Yeah, all the gods, and then after they can taste it.
Bees and all, every drop of honey is scooped out and collected in giant urns, before sending the basket back up for more. The success of the honey hunt relies entirely on good communication and absolute trust between the 9 different team members. Each one has learnt his job from his father, and they play the same role every year. But these men may be among the last generation of honey hunters. Even though they always leave many of the hives untouched, there are still far fewer than there used to be. The high-altitude meadows where the wild bees collect their pollen are fast disappearing, as Nepal's growing population terrace and cultivate every available square centimetre. Where 20 years ago there might have been 70 bees' nests on this cliff, today there were just 17 that we could see. After half a dozen honeycombs had been harvested, we broke for lunch, much to the delight of the local monkeys, who didn't miss their chance to grab what they could while the bees and the hunters were away.
It's half-time, as it were. The head honey hunter and his assistant have done their bit. And guess who's next? They're all on the surface anyway, very relaxed about the whole thing. And I'm trying to maintain a sort of calm exterior. But inside I don't feel calm at all.
Nevertheless, as soon as we'd eaten, the hunt was back on. And Hitman and I made our way gingerly up the side of the cliff to the top of the ladders. The path was slippery and the drop-away was vertical. But I was the only one who seemed to notice. By the time we were 2/3 of the way up, I was having something of a personal crisis.
So, are you ready?
No.
But I knew I couldn't just give up. And despite feeling absolutely petrified, I tentatively approached the very top of the cliff. From down below it had looked high enough, but from up here it was truly horrifying. Even the presence of the safety ropes which Hitman had arranged for me was doing nothing to calm me down.
God, bloody hell. We're on the edge. You didn't tell me we were on the edge.
Nearly there.
And I knew that things were only going to get worse. I felt sick, standing at the top of a sheer cliff, about to follow my guide Hitman down a bamboo rope ladder in pursuit of wild honey, and suffering from severe vertigo.
You scared?
Yes. Scared, sort of putting it lightly. I think terrified's a better word. You're on a ledge there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Hitman himself had only done this once before.
Hello. Hello.
And watching him tiptoe tentatively over the edge didn't make me feel any better at all.
Oh, bloody hell, look at that. Clinging on for dear life.
But when he reached the little ledge where the rest of the honey hunters were waiting, it was my turn.
I like my life. What am I doing this for? Now, Mr. Tree, you're pretty solid, aren't you? Just stay solid, please. One false... Oh! A slippery run. One small step.
Looking down into the gaping abyss of empty space below me, I began to feel unutterably terrified. The vertigo demons were back, and I was struggling to keep control.
Step number 4. 4th step. Do you want to do 5? Go ahead, enjoy yourself. Step 5, coming up. Yes. Step 5. Oh, it's just straight down.